So for starters, can you introduce yourself to those who didn't catch our last webinar, which was on YouTube at the time?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Robert Aseda. I work with the Network for Adolescents and Youth of Africa. We do advocacy for reproductive health and rights in Kenya, in Africa. Some comprehensive sexual education. Yeah.
I presume that you have read the bill, Sindio. And quite presumably, some people have a lot of issues with this, especially the clergy, which has had some really big pushback on the bill. What do you think triggered them? Which part do you think contradicted what they believed or has led to them pushing back this bill so much as they have, Sahi?
Yeah, so generally, we are a country that is sometimes very conservative. We do not want to have conversations around sexuality. We are a people who pretend that young people are not having sex. We tend to think that the conversation around sex or talking about sex in some ways make young people want to have sex, which generally is unfounded, basically. So I think most of the opposition is coming from two fronts. The first one is very many people have not read the bill. The way the bill has been sensationalized in the media, people get most of the information from the sensationalization of the bill. So you find people saying that, for example, the bill is about giving young people contraceptives or abortion or homosexuality or whatever it is, but they have not taken time to read the bill. So that's the first front of the opposition. They oppose because they don't know what is in the bill and they believe what they have been told about the bill. The second one is the second source of opposition is what I had explained earlier about certain concepts that contradict to what we have been normalized to as a country. So things around religion, things around culture, things about values that do not necessarily support reproductive health. And we also have general opposition from politicians, religious leaders, cultural leaders, and all these people. So it makes it look as if the bill is yet the bill has a profound importance to ensure that young people, women, and even men, everyone has access to the highest attainable standard of reproductive health care in this country.
Yes, as quoted in the Kenyan Constitution, yeah, access to to the highest attainable form of healthcare, which in this case is SRH, sexual reproductive healthcare, Sindio. But as we have seen, most people are misinformed because they don't actually read the bill. They just hear. It's hearsay from other people and other sensationalized stories that they get this information from them, and then, you know, the story of telephone, yeah, the game of telephone. Someone says something on this end, and by the end, it's something.
Telephone, yeah.
Yes, it's something very different in the end. So, with the poor, we know that Kenya has a really bad, poor reading culture. So, what do you think we can do? Because do we social media this? Do we put it in a format that is easier to digest? How do we go forward with making people understand that what they're hearing out there is not actually what's in the bill? How do we make them, quote unquote, read the bill without actually reading it? Or if there's another format of getting the point across?
Yeah, so I think it's generally unfortunate that most of the critical decisions that we have to make, often people don't invest their time in reading. So for example, with the Constitution, you hear that this politician has read it for us, and we make our decisions based on the interpretation of that politician or that leader. So the problem is basically that there are people who are not, I mean, they have made up their mind that they don't want the bill, even without reading the bill. So I think one of the ways and that we could ensure that people get interested in the bill is A lot of organizations have done, whether it is just simple posters, simple fact sheets, simple, very simple communication materials that says that this is what the bill is about. Is about. So at least you can be able to see some of the key information.
Okay.
What others have done have also developed some myth busters, basically saying that people have said this about the bill. This is not true, So some people, for example, are saying that this bill is about this, and then you say, no, it's actually not about this. So we have seen that at least putting it in a manner that people can relate with it makes it easier to be able to pass the information. Other people have also done whether it's just simple podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever it is that at least can be able to get people to be interested in actually having a real conversation about the bill as opposed to sensationalized.
All right, I just want to share something with you here. This is an article by The Star, and then you can look at this paragraph here, the one that I have highlighted. Wow, if we allow sexual pleasure to be taught as a right. Now, it just catches me as wrong from the first statement. What is being misconstrued here in terms of the teenagers being given reproductive health? The third clause, the seventh clause of the reproductive health care bill, yes? It talks about the reproductive health of adolescents and the clergy here, the Catholic Doctors Association, yes? This Catholic doctor is saying that this is sexual pleasure to be taught as a right. Let me just read this. If we allow sexual pleasure to be taught as a right, what happens when once to the pleasure and there is no consenting partner of the opposite sex? This will create perverts who will engage in masturbation, same-sex relationship, rape, bestiality, incest, teenage sex, and abortion. They told the lawmakers. Now, how is this is a gross misstepping? How do you interpret? First off, how do you interpret this bill, the seventh clause, which deals with the reproductive health of the youth? How do you interpret it, and what is your take on this?
So first of all, earlier we had said that the Constitution of Kenya actually provides the right to reproductive health.
Yes.
So that's a right that is enshrined in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Which, if the Reproductive Health Act does not introduce new rights. So the role of Parliament is to enact legislation that will help us realize the provisions of the Constitution, because the Constitution cannot implement itself. That is why, for example, we call 43(1) of the Constitution that provides the right to health, and then we have a Health Act, the Health Act of 2017, that provides for how that right in the Constitution will be realized.
Okay.
So what we're doing now, and what Parliament is doing now, is developing an act to realize the right to reproductive health care as provided for in the Constitution. So it is not that we are introducing new rights. That's the first thing that we need to
get it
clarify.
Okay.
There's no right that is being created. It is the right that is enshrined in the Constitution that is being realized. The second thing is that reproductive health and reproductive rights are very, very broad. Very many. For example, you have the right, for example, to choose a partner. If you want to get married, for example, you can decide who you want to get married to. You can decide if you want to have children, for example, or the number of children that you want. You can exercise your rights, for example, to accessing contraceptives, for example, or whatever right it is. So it's a broad range of rights, and it is not just the rights as the doctors are saying. So they are fear mongering. They are using disinformation and misinformation, and they are creating a situation whereby people who have not they naturally going to oppose the bill even without looking at the bill. So it's very, very important for us to be able to correct that narrative and give the right version, because what they are saying is definitely not there. And you can ask them what clause are they referring to talk about that the bill would encourage bestiality, rape, or some of these issues. Having said that, it's also very important to say that already, even without the bill, we are having issues around young people who are being defiled. We are having a lot of issues of teenage pregnancies and safe abortions. Girls are dying from unsafe abortions, and yet nobody wants to talk about it. So it's like they're saying that these things currently do not exist. If we create this bill, then we will have teenage pregnancies and unsafe abortions, which is literally
it is false.
Could not be further from the truth.
Yes. And what I see is that a small part of the bill is taken, and then they run with it. They run with it like the wind. And then it is pretentious to think that we live in a bubble, that these things don't happen. And as you had stated earlier, in our African tradition, it's really difficult to talk about these things which are quote unquote sensitive. But when something such as this is brought forth, it is met with a lot of repulsion from the people, from the clergy, from basically majority of the people. But there is no solution that is given from them. They won't say that, okay, this is not the right way, let's do this way. They just say no, and then just go back to burying our heads in the sand.
Yeah, that attitude is self-defeating, and I don't understand it. Especially you remember earlier in the year, there was this surge of teenage pregnancies, and then people are like, so what do we do now? And instead of trying to come up with active solutions, people are like, no, those numbers are not real. And you're like, where are you living? Because if you live in Kenya, if you live in our communities, at least some young girl who has gotten pregnant at a young age. So then the kind of deflection that they do, you sometimes wonder, what does that mean? And it's sometimes you wonder if people are living in the same country, because if indeed we are living in the same country, then we would be able to propose solutions. At least, what kind of solutions would they want? Because we have tried, for example, issues around abstinence. If you tell young people to abstain, some of them are going to abstain, yes, but the majority of them are not going to abstain.
They will not.
Yeah. So you can't just, as you're saying, just can't hide your head in the sand and hope that the danger will go away. Yeah, the danger will go away.
And
people will have sex.
They will. They are having sex. That is something that we cannot run away from. And the thing that gets to me the most is that after all this has been butted away by the said people, the people who are blamed, they say this young generation, this new generation, they're into this. We just blamed. I, as part of the new generation, I feel I do not feel right, because there is no solution that is given. Because if these problems were mitigated earlier, then we would have had better education about these subjects, right? For instance, I don't remember having age-appropriate sexual education back in school. Things just happened, and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm just gonna roll with this. And what happens after people just go naturally with things? Things will happen, and later they'll be blamed about this. This new generation is so immoral. This new generation does not do this and that. It's not like the previous one. Forgetting that, even if you look back in the African traditions and stuff, if you look at the generations back then, there were selected people in the community who would talk to young boys and girls about these things. But now you expect the parents to talk about them, but they do not. The teachers in school are supposed to take up the mantle, but they do not. So where are we expected to get this knowledge from? We will just do trial and error.
Either listen to a friend of yours who is also ill-informed as you are.
Two blind men.
They will tell you, for example, that if you if you have sex, for example, in the pool, you will not get pregnant, or there is this a whole lot of myths that young people keep on passing from one another, and when you hear it from two people, then you're like, oh, that must be the truth.
It must be the truth.
You cannot get you cannot get pregnant, for example, if you just do it once,
That is actually compounded by some videos we did last week, which we were talking to the youth about sexual and reproductive health, sexuality, and the myths that surround contraception. And you could see that a lot of them had these myths that are being that are being put forward by the majority. But if 5 people say, if I have sex inside salty water, I won't get pregnant, I'm going to take that as the gospel truth and run with it. So,
and you're also going to inform other people that, oh, I actually found out that when you have sex inside a pool, you're not going to get pregnant. So it becomes information, and actually, you know that information and misinformation actually spreads faster than information. It's easier to pass a rumor than actually to pass something that is based on a fact.
That is actually completely true. That's why they say rumors sell. That's why these tabloids sell a lot. That do with the rumors.
Yeah.
I wanted to share this second clause of the Reproductive Health Bill, which deals with access to family planning services, which also has been an issue to most people. The reason why I do not know. So can you, what do you understand by this clause, the second clause, the access to family planning services? What does it offer? What does it offer as a clause? What does it propose?
First of all, as I said earlier, the bill does not introduce any new rights. It just realizes the rights as contained in the Constitution.
The Constitution.
So when the Constitution says that everyone has the right to the highest standard of health, including reproductive health care, a key component of right to choose for yourself how many children you want to have, whether you want to have children in the first place, and what kind of spacing you want to have for the children if you decide to have children. So the bill then realizes that by saying that everyone should be able to access contraceptives. And the truth is, so long as you are sexually active, when you are engaging in sex, there's always a risk of getting pregnant. So then why are we saying that it should be okay for people to get pregnant when they don't want to get pregnant? So the issue around that clause is providing for people who are sexually active to be able to get contraceptives that they need in order to delay or in order to stop pregnancies that they don't want.
The problem with this one, they were saying, it's that it encourages the young people to be mischievous, to partake in immoral sexual activity, which was happening anyway, which would happen even if this wasn't introduced, right? So my thought was, why have such a pushback on this? Well, the gospel of abstinence has been preached over the years. Yes, it is practical to some level. It is. I do not disagree with abstinence. It's a virtuous thing to abstain if you can. But as seen with the statistics, the years, because take out COVID, just take out COVID. Even the years preceding this COVID pandemic, there were cases of teenage pregnancies which were in large numbers. Not only this year, but this year, because most young people, teenagers and the youth are at home, the cases increased. But that does not mean that before there were no cases. Now, saying that this promotes promiscuity, not promiscuity, they're not married, they're young people. This promotes sexual misendeavors among young people. It just seems off to me, because if you look at the statistics, teenage pregnancies, they were there before even this was proposed. And to me, this was just a way to try and mitigate. If you can't try to mitigate some of these cases, I would like to hear what you think about the value or the devaluation of this clause of the said bill, and why people are so much against it, and what can be done. So I'd like to hear what your take is. Yeah.
I think the first thing we need to agree as a country is that we are hypocrites. We
100%. I agree with that. 100%.
We are a nation that says we love the Lord, we have values, but sometimes you wonder what kind of values we have as a country, when those values are either to protect young people, to ensure that young people grow up in a healthy manner, that we have access to education, access to good healthcare system, We say we are a country of God, yet we are among the countries, I think, that have the most scandals,
Yes.
corruption cases, land
Jesus.
grabbing. I
Don't
mean,
start me with the
all of
corruption.
these things, and yet and now when it comes to young people accessing family planning or contraceptive, we are suddenly like, oh, no, 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 that's where we draw the line. Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, I just can't understand the level of hypocrisy. Then, having said that, the bill does not introduce contraceptives. I think I can't overemphasize this.
Mm-hmm.
This bill does not introduce any new rights, because we already have the National Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Policy of 2015 that provides for access to contraceptives for young people. We already have an health act that defines what kind of services young people need. We have national guidelines for provision of youth-friendly services of 2016 that says young people should be able to access contraceptives. As early as the year of our Lord 2009, we had the National Condom Strategy. It was developed in order to curb the high rise of HIV/AIDS. So this bill does not introduce contraceptives, and I think it's important that we understand that. Having said that, the key thing is that for especially this is now for poor young people, for young people who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, is that they will not be able to access such services at all, because people with money, for example, if you have money and you go to a big hospital, there's no one there who will deny you services. The people who will be denied services are the people who go to the local dispensary and the local health center, because the law and is very, say, very need to ensure that at the end of the day they get the services that they need, so that they are able to be protected from issues such as teenage pregnancies.
Are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. From my point of view,
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
In my point of view, I believe, or I think, not believe, I think that most people are against this bill because of society. Because for me, I understand the implications of the bill, what the bill proposes, and as you have said, it does not introduce anything new. It's just reinforcing what's already there and making it stringent so that most people, a lot of people who are now not accessing these services can access them. But for me, if my parent is against this bill, if I'm a teen and both my parents are like, no, this bill is bad and so forth, because it has been castigated by the church or some people in the society, major people, they'll be against it. And because of that, I will also be against it, even though to some certain degree I understand what this bill says, what the provisions are. But if you're in a mob and most people are leaning right, you're not going to lean left. You don't want to be left out. And that sense of communal belonging is what leads most people to go, oh, okay, I'm just going to lean left with this or right with these people. I'm going to speak out against this. And until people just understand the value of progressive thinking, I believe we shall have more problems like this, in case other bills that are to help people, but certain key people in places reject them. I think such problems we will face such problems in future, not only to such a bill or and not only to such a bill, but also to other things that will be introduced which are beneficial, be it bills, be it laws, be it services, whatever. I believe that, from my point of view, that is one of the major things that has led people to disagree with this bill. And as you had said before, if you look at most people, they actually do not know what this bill is about. Most of them, they just hear from people, and since these people they have a pull, or they influence the general structure of what is around them, the community, the belonging of the people, they're like, okay, I'm just gonna go along with these people no matter what they say. And this bill will be met by a lot of hindrance, because I have talked to friends of mine. They understand what the bill say. When they're with me, they're like, this is a really good bill, it will help us as youth. But once they go back out there, among their community, among their parents, among their fellow church members, they're like, no, I don't support this. This is moral. It's against whatever the church propagates. So for me, that is what I think is one of the stumbling blocks, the mentality of the people, and changing.
Yeah, so I was saying there's a major disconnect between, for example, what young people want, and as you've said, what our parents, our caregivers, and the elderly people want. And you mentioned something that I think is very, very important, in that I don't think there is any young person who goes to their parents and say that now I want to have sex, I want to start having sex, or I actually had sex yesterday. And if you ask most parents, yes, if you ask most parents and ask them, do you think your child is having sex? They will say, no, my child can't be having sex.
Johnny Wangu.
Yeah?
Never.
Never. Yeah. So then you have a case whereby, I mean, sometimes when we talk about young people, it appears as if we're talking about abstract people or people who are not here, you know. So if you ask a parent, for example, they will say that my child is not having sex, and therefore, because my child is not having sex, yes, my child is a church boy. Therefore, my child does not need condoms. But if you ask the child of course knows very well that they are having sex, and knows very well that they need access to condoms. So it's also very important that we destigmatize the conversation around sex and sexuality. I know it will take a very long time, but there needs to come a time whereby people can actually be free to not talk about how they're having sex or who they're having sex with.
Oh, definitely not.
To have some general conversation,
because yes, general conversations.
Yes, they say charity begins at home.
At home.
Yeah, charity begins at home. So that is the first place that people need to have these conversations, and these conversations are very hard conversations. And we also need to see how can, you know, there are some parents who want to have these conversations with their children, but they don't have that capacity. They don't know even what to say. So it's important that we also find ways of supporting parents to be able to have these conversations in a very friendly manner, in a very truthful manner, in a very candid manner, and in a manner that actually is also very comfortable to them and to the children as well.
Definitely. And this I want to extend this out, Kidogo, from the bill, and I'd like to bring in the aspect of youth-friendly centers. I'm pretty sure you know about them. Because as seen, it's very difficult, especially for an African parent, a Kenyan parent, to sit down with his son or daughter and talk about their sexual health, their sexual activities. It's really difficult. And as you had said, it will take a long time. If this is to happen, it'll take a long time. And certainly, I don't believe that the generation before us will do it. Because 90% of the friends I have, no one talks to their parents about this. They never have the talk or anything as we hear in the TV and stuff. They just learned this amongst their peers. That's where they learned it. And this concept of youth-friendly centers offers an avenue for the people with information to talk about these things to the youth, like their sexuality, their sexual and reproductive health, so that even if we can't curb this in the previous generation that has gone, these new parents that will come in, who are us, will be the new parents. We are the new parents who will be coming in. We will be comfortable enough. We will have the capacity, since we have been built. We've been built the capacity from the conversations we have had with our fellow peers who are knowledgeable, or people who are slightly older but have a connection with the youth and are knowledgeable about these products. It will know about the sexuality, sexual reproductive health, and contraception among the youth. It will help us then to talk about this to the generations that come after. For us to comfort up to the fact that this information needs to be passed down to every new generation, then we need to be educated. And as seen, it is really difficult for parents to do that. So the next best person to do this would be a teacher in school, or someone in a youth-friendly center. And I believe the provision of this clause would the provision of this clause in the bill would then make this avenue whereby the teachers can teach these young people about selected, not everyone, like specific who have a good connection with the young people and have a good way of relaying these things, so they can teach these young people, the youth, the teenagers, us, about what is to be expected. Because to start with, the teachers already teach these young people about reproduction, the reproductive systems of the male and the female. Why not add the reproductive health education into this curriculum, which would be a very swell idea. So the next clause I wanted to look at is the safe motherhood. And I have no idea why people have a problem with safe motherhood. I really do not. No, I can get the sparks that will fly when it comes to contraception and the reproductive health of the teenagers, but safe motherhood? Why would anyone have a problem with safe motherhood?
The conversation, it's mostly the conversation around reproductive rights and abortion.
Yes.
That is making people uncomfortable with the safe motherhood.
Oh yeah. So in case, so safe motherhood comes entwined with consented abortion or termination of pregnancy. There are different clauses, but they come intertwined in the minds of these people.
Termination of pregnancy, yeah. I mean, in some cases, basically the issue is the interpretation and how different people interpret certain things. That's why you hear that, oh, now they're sneaking in in this clause. So it's not even about what is provided for. It is what people think is provided for that becomes the basis of conversation. And as we were saying earlier, that if people say, if someone who says they have read the bill and interprets it in a certain way and then goes to tell other people that this is what they mean, then other people are likely to listen to them, especially if they think that person has authority on that issue. So we have seen lawyers, for example, or doctors who are coming from the church, basically saying that this is what is the issue, and people believe them because they think that they have legitimacy and they have authority on that particular issue.
So generally, how are we supposed to demystify this? And going back to the first question I asked Glolionge about giving this information on platforms such as Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram, how do we get people to stop believing these myths that are put forward by a minority of these people? How do we get people to yani wamoke this story about the bill?
So I mean, I think we can learn a lot from them because they're using very creative communication materials. I don't know if you've seen their videos. They have very, very nice videos that
you should definitely send.
You would be like, wow, okay.
You should send some of those so that I can have a look.
I mean, they are very good videos actually. I mean, leave alone the content, the truth of what they're saying, but they are very persuasive videos. Promising apocalypse and the end of the world, that these people are finishing us, it is a Western agenda, this is what, and their videos are so well narrated, so emotional, so I mean, you
fear also sells. Fear sells too.
Exactly, so you in our videos we are like, oh, this is what the bill says, oh, blah blah blah, but these guys have gone on overdrive. I mean,
above and beyond
is just fully oiled and ready to go on the road. So I think that's something for us to learn as well, on how to be able to develop our communication materials in a manner that speaks to the fears and speaks to the truths and speaks to the lived realities of young people and women of this country.
Do you think everyone should be targeted with this? or is it specific? Do we go with specific people, a specific group of people?
I actually think that everyone has an important role to play in this conversation, and I think that we definitely need to reach out to everyone in a manner and in a format that they appeals to their rationality, to their emotions, because most of the time people make yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Are you here?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you. You did that thing again.
Oh, okay, you heard what I said, right?
Yeah, I heard what you said. Thanks for being around. Thanks for having this conversation with us. I really hope a lot of people get this information, and some of these myths that's around the bill and reproductive health, they really get demystified, because a lot of people are benefiting from this. And especially, as you had highlighted before, these people from lesser backgrounds who need such provisions in order for them to get these sexual and reproductive health commodities and services. I think it will help them. Once people are shown that this will help not only them but other people, I believe it will change to a certain degree the perception of this bill among the people and its acceptance. I mean, some things might not be right, maybe. Some things might need some polishing, but the bill itself is a noble idea.
So can I just add one thing?
Okay, go on.
So yesterday, Kenya has been undergoing review by the United Nations Universal Periodic Review about the human rights situation. Okay. So yesterday, Kenya officially accepted some recommendations and rejected some recommendations to do to advance human rights. And one of the things that the Universal Periodic Review and the Human Rights Council had asked Kenya was to develop and enact a reproductive health law to provide a legal framework for the right to reproductive health. It is very unfortunate that Kenya rejected that recommendation. So they said that, yeah, it is sad, but I think we still have to keep on pushing with this conversation to ensure that young people, women, and everyone in this country has access to the highest attainable standard of reproductive health.
Thank you, Robert.
So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for availing yourself. Have a good day.
You too.